Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leader Show, where we talk key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology in hopes of making you a better digital leader. We're live Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the audio recording is available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up IRPA AI, a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network, providing education, networking, and advice to over 130,000 members all around automation, enterprise AI, and digital transformation. Today, we're discussing Amazon's innovation secrets with former AWS digital innovation lead Amir Elzan, plus headlines for digital leaders from the world of enterprise technology. My co-host today is Chris Surdak, IRPA AI senior analyst, award-winning author, and former White House chief transformation office advisor, partner for digital transformation at Gartner, and AI practice lead at EY. Chris, happy October.
Welcome to the last quarter of 2025.
Q4 is here. Fall is here. It's October. And as we like to say in New York, it's now sweater weather.
I got one on even out here in LA, so it's starting to cool off. But as I think about it, that means we're closing in on the end of the first quarter of this century. That's freaky.
Yeah, even the idea of Q4 is kind of freaky. I feel like we just finished our 2025 planning, but here we are. It's hard to plan too much in advance these days with bombshells happening almost every week. But couple headlines today that made me think of you, Chris. Lots in the privacy space and. The evaluation space, the AI evaluation space. We have a guest, former Amazon today. Amazon reached a settlement with the FTC over what they were calling those deceptive prime program policies. And your buddy Elon Musk is suing OpenAI, saying that they stole code and trade secrets, among other things.
Okay. Tell me something we didn't already know, right?
It's in there, yeah.
I'm still marveling that they managed to start a not-for-profit that became a sort of for-profit that became a for-profit that's never going to make a profit. I mean, that alone is a phenomenal story.
Very good, and that was not rehearsed because you didn't know I was leading with that story. That was pretty good.
And had all the tax write-offs for the energy consumption.
That's right. That's right. Well, while you're there, speaking of OpenAI, they're launching a checkout service with ChatGPT for U.S. users. Started yesterday for Etsy sellers and about to be 1 million Shopify merchants. The feature allows you to browse and buy without leaving the chat in the co-development with payment processor Stripe.
Absolutely horrifying. I wrote an article about this since we're talking about Amazon today. I wrote an article about this, I think 7 years ago, that was kind of predicting what a future Christmas would be like with Amazon. And it's like, okay, we already know that your 7 best friends have these 43 things that they browsed in the last 2 hours. So we're just going to ship them to you and bill you unless we hear back from you in the next 35 seconds that you're going to reject it. So lo and behold, here we are. Automatic shopping on Etsy. What could possibly go wrong?
Do you know what? That's the one that I like. The one that's got me in the holy crap zone is their version of essentially TikTok. So Sora is coming out. They're saying it's a social app for AI generated videos where you can create an AI version of yourself and your friends can put you in a video without your permission. Can't imagine how that could go wrong.
Like half an hour ago, I don't know if you saw this, but there's this fake AI video of Sam Altman in a Target stealing GPUs off the shelf, like a shoplifter. So in that instance, I'm all for it. But I mean, for our $4 trillion, we get a fake version of TikTok. Isn't it fake enough already? And that's the huge, positive for our economy, apparently.
Do you know it's scary, Chris? But in a way, it's almost better in a way. Follow me for a second. When I doom scroll, and I try not to do it very often, but every once in a while, you get on Reddit or you get on one of these apps, and you look an hour and a half. You're like, what did I just waste my time on? But now every time I see a video, I assume that it's fake first.
Yeah. Yep.
I have to prove to myself that something is real. I think a year ago, people assumed that what they saw was true. And only later on did they find out it was a fake. I think the first one I remember hearing about was it the Pope dancing or something? It was some wacky early on AI video, right? But now I don't believe any video I see anymore until I can verify it somehow.
This for the last year, I've been hashtagging post-truth internet, post-truth world, and that's where we are. And as the video quality gets even better, so and I've joked, I think, with you in the past, we need to start 100% organic content certification. So like, here's my grass-fed beef or my 100% vegan, I don't know, vegetable shortening. We need 100% certified organic content going forward.
Wow. And you need infrastructure for all of this, right? So this company CoreWeave has just signed a $14 billion deal with Meta. They've already got Microsoft and OpenAI as customers, and I guess part of their value prop is actually like a rental of compute, kind of a as a service model. Nvidia also announced they're investing $100 billion in OpenAI. So you see these things kind of fueling each other. And then you need the infrastructure. We heard about the data center shortage earlier this year. So this is one of these, in the market saying it's one of these indicators of, maybe we're not in an AI bubble, although I know you're going to burst that.
There's going to be some, if we look back at 1999, 2000, that whole bubble, and we're talking at least in 2 orders of magnitude bigger this time around, but we laid hundreds of thousands of miles of fiber optics in anticipation of this huge internet, and most of it stayed dark for about 10 years, and we eventually lit it up and started using it. And that's why we can have a Zoom call with someone in Stockholm right now and think nothing of it, and it feels like it's effectively free. Are we going to get there with this generative AI stuff? Possibly, but are we going to experience some degree of pain like we did in 2001, 2, and 3? Probably. I mean, we'll see.
The other headline that kind of caught my eye this week, Chris, is related to banking. In my head, a lot of this innovative technology, kind of AI first, I always saw it as a disruptor, meaning companies going after the big brands, the fintechs in the banking space. But JP Morgan Chase just announced yesterday. Actually, they announced it a while back, but it was shown to the world via CNBC yesterday, their plans for an AI-powered bank. And their goal is to have AI across every facet of the bank: tech, operations, workforce, client services. Their head architect showed this to CNBC yesterday. And it's essentially, some of the things we've been talking about, right? Large language models with a bridge to company data, and their own versions of agentic AI that actually do these things, I guess, presumably with corporate guardrails and policy enforcement and a knowledge, their knowledge base in place.
Sounds amazing. I bet the PowerPoints are absolutely spectacular. The little simulation video is probably amazing too. But I was just talking with an old colleague of mine. We go back to spacecraft days, but we also were at Citibank together 27 years ago. And we were recalling how 27 years ago, we at Citibank had a prototype of an ATM where as you walked up to it, when you got within about 30 feet, it would shoot a laser in your eye, scan your retina, and would identify you. And so you can literally, when you walk up to, for sure it's you. And when you reach the ATM, it was ready to go. You just type in your numbers and you're done. And it worked brilliantly right up until we went to marketing and said, hey, we're going to roll it out. And they said, people watch Star Wars. You're going to shoot them in the face with a laser? And so it didn't. Amazingly, we never deployed it. So we'll see if this thing passed regulatory muster. Having worked in banking for 30 plus years, I cannot imagine a scenario where any of this would pass regulatory control. But I'm all for it. It's going to be amazing to watch.
Well, and it brings up this debate, which is a bigger topic for another show. But as the president in the U.S. is threatening $100,000 fees for H-1B visas, it makes you really wonder whether or not there'll be any penalty for companies to just hire AI agents instead of people. Is it going to really bring American jobs back, or is it just going to accelerate the AI, agentic AI adoption?
Which is, I mean, moments ago I posted where the biggest mistake we can make is to view AI adoption as yet another layer of labor arbitrage. So, we offshored and reshored and deshored and unshored and non-shored and all that kind of stuff. And now we're just trying to find the next shore that we can try to cut labor costs. And unfortunately, I don't think AI fits the bill there. It's potentially too disruptive. And you can't treat it like you would a human workforce for a variety of reasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But there is going to be at least some belief that this technology can wipe out entire swaths of human workers, just like we saw as IRPA with RPA 7 years ago. And it didn't really manifest that way.
And last story before we get to our guest, the governor of California has signed the first U.S. law to require AI companies to disclose safety practices and report serious AI incidents. And if you're thinking, hey, who cares? That's 1 out of the 50 states. It turns out that 32 of the world's top 50 AI firms are based in California. So they're saying, although it's not Europe and the federal law, although they're working on that as well, it could kind of shape global norms and push companies towards clearer risk reporting, or at least, going elsewhere for now.
I've been in the regulatory space for a very long time too. And this is one of those careful what you wish for moments. Do you really want to know? And it reminds me of there used to be a long time ago a commercial for that really discount low-end hotel chain that says, we'll leave the light on for you. And my thought was, if I have to stay at your hotel chain, just leave the light off. I don't want to know about it.
I don't want anybody else seeing me go in.
I don't need to see the cockroaches and stuff. Just let me go to sleep without the lights on. And I kind of feel like this, revealed to us all the ugly stuff happening in the back end of your AI system. I probably would rather not want to know.
That's funny. Well, let's get to our guest. We're joined today by Amir Elian. He's a former leader of Amazon's Web Services Digital Innovation Program, currently CEO of Think Big Leaders. He's guided companies of all sizes, including Volvo, Adobe, Johnson & Johnson, as well as startups around digital transformation and innovation. Amir, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Chris. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So you have a very long pedigree, Amir, but give everybody the highlights and the context before we jump in.
Yeah, so I'll just give key points. I started in informal education, an interesting company that came up with a new methodology to teach children skills through board games. That was fun. I still have a lot of the board games back home. Then did some innovation and marketing consulting. Moved on to corporate jobs in the pharma industry and later in Motorola Solutions. I was director of products in 2 startups in learning technologies, virtual and augmented reality. Then I moved on to Amazon Web Services, initially leading the customer training team for cloud skills, and then in my role as digital innovation lead in the Nordics in Stockholm, where I am now. And about 2 years ago, I left AWS. I now lead my own company where I help, as you said, different companies and leaders with mostly AI and innovation.
Great. So let me start with Amazon. I mean, obviously, Amazon has become synonymous with all things innovation. I think globally, but certainly in the U.S., it's a household name. Obviously, there's some news today about the next generation of Alexa devices coming out with Alexa Plus, the large language model that's been talked about for a while. But give us a little sense of what the culture there, and is there any kind of secret sauce behind their ability to innovate, and how do other enterprises bring that in? Because it seems to me, up until maybe very recently with Gen AI, it seems to me that most large companies are not, unless they were born digital, do not think the same way as Amazon, or haven't at least.
Yeah, definitely. And Amazon has a very unique culture, and this was something I was fascinated with ever since I joined it. Even though even before I was on the innovation team, and I was very curious about this because, when I joined AWS, it was an interesting feeling. As on the one hand, you feel, the power, the strength of this like mammoth organization with all the resources and the power of a corporate. But on the other hand, many days you feel like you're in a very fast moving, innovative startup, right? So how do you create this kind of interesting combination? And it is rooted a lot in Amazon's culture. And we can probably dive deeper into this. It starts with Amazon's mission, which is, being the world's most customer centric company. And then it is also rooted in what is called the Amazon's leadership principles, which is not just for the leaders, it's for all the employees, for, I don't know, I think 1.5 million today, around that. um, so that, and it's not just on the wall or on your employee lanyard card, right? It is really in everyday decisions, in everyday um, actions and conversations. uh, and it is also, it's multifaceted. It's also in the way that the structure of the company, right? The organizational structure, what is called the two pizza teams. Some of your audience might have heard that. So it's multifaceted, and I was very fascinated with it. And in my role, I was actually lucky enough to speak to others about it. And it is a very good point that you said. It is in a certain way very unique to Amazon and how it operates, but it still is possible to transfer some of these principles, because I think what is good, about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, the way that he built it, is it it has great insights about human psychology, about how teams operate, and about how organizations at scale operate. So those principles you can still talk about and transfer and customize to, the history of the very different companies that I get to talk with.
So there was a philosophy I read about that you had written about, which is this kind of working backwards to move forward. What does that mean?
Yeah, so just to touch on, I heard Chris telling about this ATM story, right? When you started with this technology, and it looked amazing and it worked incredible, and then you went into market, and they kind of, you faced reality. But yeah, what will the customers say, right? So that's the way that Amazon thinks about it. You don't at Amazon, you don't start innovation with the technology, or even with the business, or your SWOT analysis and where do we want to be. And it's okay if other companies do differently, but Amazon's philosophy is you always start with the customer and then you work backwards, right? And by the way, I recommend reading Jeff Bezos's letters to shareholders over the years, since the first one of, I think, 1997, and moving on. You can understand a lot of Amazon's cultures through that. Uh, so working backwards means you have to be very specific about who you're solving the problem for. That is the customer, and you ask yourself 5 working backwards questions before you do anything. Before you write a single line of code. Before you do any planning about purchasing and even the team structure or whatnot. So you start with deceptively simple questions. Um, the first one is, who is the customer? And you have to be specific. You can't say everybody who's using our product, or all of this segment or whatnot. Who is a very specific customer who is kind of exemplifies the problem that we want to solve. And then that naturally follows. The second question is, what is the problem for that customer, or the missed opportunity? And again, you have to be very specific about it. And you can't say, well, it's this problem plus this problem. No, you have to choose one, which is you're focusing on. The third question is, within this problem, within this context, what is the most important benefit or issue for the customer? What is the value that they're looking for? And from then on, then you're seeking some evidence. How do we know that this is what the customer needs or want? And it's not, you can't just rely on what they're saying. You need to include observations, and Amazon is a very data driven company. And only the fifth question is, how does the customer experience, or basically how does the solution look like, in order to solve all of those questions? So, and you can spend quite a lot of time and energy understanding the answers to those questions. And only then do you start thinking about, okay, how do we manifest? And the next stage that we can talk about maybe later is you need to articulate it in a very clear way, which is another part of Amazon's culture in a narrative format. In the case of innovation, it's called the press release and the FAQ document, the PRFAQ document. And there's reasons why you do that. But what I'm surprised whenever I come and talk about this, and even with great leadership teams, with very successful companies, with even in Sweden we have some companies that are um, over 100 or even 200 years old, and they're very successful in the market. But I would raise up these questions: like, who is your customer that we want to address now with this engagement or think workshop that we're doing? And I would have, like, in the room, like 6 leading people have very different answers to this very basic question. And that means you can't start with the lasers or the AI or the IoT if you don't know who you're working for and who you're solving for. And the interesting piece here, and here's another nuance there, that in Amazon's thinking. So if you discover a problem in the world for a customer that you want to solve, it even matters less if you have the capabilities now. If this is important enough and you decide that you want to solve this, you're going to build a new muscle or a new business unit like AWS, right? This is how AWS came about, right? That is serving a completely new set of customers with a completely new set of capabilities that you've never had before, because you're laser focused, pun intended on Chris's example, on the solution and on the customer.
Well, and if I'll jump on that, Amir. That's sort of the nature of transformation. A lot of times people are digitizing what they already did, right? And that's not transformative. If it didn't hurt, you didn't transform anything. And the other thing that comes to mind as you're talking is I'm old enough to remember when Prime first came out, and everyone was like, "Who in the right mind needs to get a delivery the next day?" Well, now you got like 20% of Amazon customers are like, "Hey, I ordered this 5 minutes ago. Where is it?" Right?
Yeah, the irony is that I've had to adjust my Ring cameras to not show motion because I've got Amazon deliveries at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Oh, probably
cardboard companies.
Maybe it's a good feature for the Ring team to think about, right? If you have Prime delivery coming on, disable the camera movement detection.
Well, I just saw this feature yesterday. I just updated my devices to Alexa Plus, and they claim to be able to do, like, visual with memory, right? So they can tell, like, if it's your dog that's outside versus like a lost dog. If you didn't feed your dog, it somehow knows that you don't feed your dog. So yeah, maybe there's something where if it's an Amazon badged person, it doesn't set the alarm off. But if it's UPS or FedEx, it does. Who knows?
Chases them away.
Call me, Amazon. I got lots of good ideas. Amir, so much of I think what a lot of people in the consumer space don't necessarily realize, but I think in our space, maybe they do, is a lot of what happened at AWS kind of paid for all that other Amazon stuff in a way. What was kind of the genesis of that? It wasn't always AI, right? It was cloud computing. What other kind of levers made AWS kind of rise the way it did?
So here it's a good example of how working backwards works, right? So Amazon, with being the retail e-commerce giant that it was starting to be, and having all these Black Fridays and lots of transactions online, needed a lot of computing and storage and databases and whatnot, and they were struggling because this was like a monolith application, and very difficult to release features. Before now, it looks like natural that we have cloud and microcomputing and microservices and whatnot. But then back in the day, Chris would remember, and then maybe you as well, right? It was very hard to ship software, and part of it was because of infrastructure and the way that software was built. So Amazon started to kind of peel the onion for itself, and it started to solve things. And there were some anecdotal stories there, and it even started to create what we now call as APIs, right? So users could originally the third parties could use them to to put frames from Amazon website on their websites. But then they started to see that actual Amazon engineers were starting to use those same APIs to solve problems that were very difficult to otherwise solve. And then again, they dove into this, and they came up with this idea. And then the next step, which is the next step of the working backwards methodology, Andy Jassy, which is now the CEO of all of Amazon, wrote this document, which is called the PR FAQ, the press release and the FAQ document. It's a very different press release than you would put out, or you would think it normally in terms of marketing press release. It's an internal document that helps you crystallize exactly what the answers to the working backwards questions, and have clarity about the vision, right? So it's a one page. It's a very structured way of expressing, and you're not allowed to use any marketing fluff or technical jargon. If I give it to the neighbor next door, they should understand what is the problem, how are you solving this, and what's in it for me. So Andy Jassy and the team around him wrote the press release. Then you follow it with some FAQs, frequently asked questions, starting with the customer FAQs, right? How does this cost? What kind of support can I expect? And how is this different from something else, and whatnot? And only then do you write like stakeholder FAQs. How is this the business model, the operating model? And remember, Amazon was a pure e-commerce B2C company at the time. And the document said, we are going to do services for developers, for enterprises that are facing the same issues and struggling with the same challenges of compute and data and databases as Amazon does. And we're going to build a whole new offering for them, right? And it started with just a few services, S3 and I think SNS, which is the messaging, or SQS, the messaging services. And it grew from there with very rapid iteration and feedback. And and today I think AWS has more than 250 services. It's already like super confusing in many, even just in databases. I think there's at least 14 types of databases. There's loads of AI services now, of course. And Amazon and AWS now acquired a few years ago, and are already building their own chips and hardware just to fuel this kind of capabilities and capacity. But it all started with a press release document, PR FAQ document. I think it went through 30 odd iterations just to crystallize and articulate very clearly what are we trying to do, and how is it going to look like. So that's their origin story of AWS. And as you said, it's been the driving engine of Amazon in recent years.
Well, and if I may, I think people don't either understand or don't really care about the financial wizardry involved with all that, because Amazon was going to be, they were developing all this amazing technology and capability anyway for their own purposes, which would be an expense. But then you turn around and turn it into a revenue generating machine, which then allowed their customers to take what was a CapEx on their side, recreating the same functionality in their own IT department and turning that into an operating expense. So it wasn't just innovative from the standpoint of the functionality delivered. It was innovative in the financial gyrations we go through to pretend that our books make sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, and it started, and it changed the way that you compute, that you consume technology. Right. If you wanted to develop something before, you had to order a server, wait for a couple of months, install all the software, maintain it, and whatnot. And then cloud computing, which basically AWS invented or made what it is today, made it that you can. It's like a switch. It's like electricity. You turn it on, you turn it off. You scale to 1,000 servers if you want. You scale it down the next day or the next hour, and it's super easy for. It's leveling the playing field for startups, for enterprises. It actually accelerates innovation as well.
You took the compute capacity that you had to have on hand for the holiday season, and you put it to use the other 10 months of the year.
Exactly.
Yep.
So yes, it changes financial models, operating models, the way that you do innovation, and opens up many more opportunities.
Amir, talk about AI from an enterprise and B2B standpoint. Where do you see the upsides? What are you concerned about as we kind of get more to agentic AI and automation?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is it's overwhelming for everybody. Even for the likes of us, maybe that are a bit more into the details and follow the news like you're doing and then sharing. Definitely more so for executives and employees and even board members, and so it's really overwhelming. And then I see one of the things I'm concerned about is people either freeze and say, okay, we need to get past this wave, we need just to survive, or once it settles down, which it will never do, it will only accelerate, uh, or they just try to kind of rush ahead without understanding what are the opportunities, the risks, and then they end up losing resources, they fire people, they hire them back, they do all kinds of pilots that end up in the trash can. So this is the most thing I'm concerned about, and the most thing that I'm trying to help, right? And my way of thinking about it and helping with this is putting some simplifying the story a bit, and also translating the technology and the all the things that are happening in the transformation to terms that are relevant to those leaders and the non-technical leaders I'm talking about. So I offer them some framework. What are the key opportunities and how you should be looking at them, and then the other thing, you need to lower the fear factor. A lot of people are kind of making decisions based on fear or misinformation. So I think we're also missing a lot of hands-on and understanding of what are the tools capable of. Chris, you mentioned earlier about we won't delegate everything to AI agents just now, right? Or maybe never, right? Because there are limitations there. We need to be aware of these. We need to make smart decisions around this. So my biggest concern is people's misunderstanding of this, both the potential and the risks involved, and then that leads to wrong decisions and waste of good energy and good resources, and then mistrust. So that's my main concern. Um, I'm still an optimist. I still see there's lots of potential here, and I see a lot of value being created when I do this kind of work with customers of all sorts. Uh, there is a lot of, and even if we stop today, all development and all all the models would freeze, and we would have no further infrastructure. There would be so much value to extract from this, and of course, when there's more development going on, and on you mentioned agentic AI. So I remember a year ago, hardly anybody was talking about agents, right? It was people were kind of, Microsoft was starting to push, okay, 2025 is going to be the year of agents. We didn't really have agentic systems. It was like just kind of stories of agents. We are starting to see them coming out now and being a bit more reliable and more powerful, definitely in the software engineering field, but also, as you said, now in shopping and consumer applications. Um, it maybe amplifies the risks and also the potential. So maybe my earlier concerns are even more heightened, and we need to pay even more attention to them.
How do you avoid, if you're a leader, this show's for digital leaders, right? If you're a digital leader and you're trying to, balance the hype, and the misconceptions versus the reality, how do you avoid that kind of, I think you call it the hype trap?
Yeah. So as I said, leaders come to me and say, hey, we need to do something with AI, right? There's a hype. The board is pressing, the employees are pressing, the customers are pressing, the competitors are doing things. We need to do things with AI. So I go back to my earlier question. I said, wait, let's not rush to the solution. Let's ask, are you trying to do? What is the business opportunity or problem, or what's happening, and what is your strategy that you would like to support? So let's start with that. And maybe AI can fit in there, or AI agents, or AI powered workflows, or co-pilots, or whatnot. So I usually ground it back into what is the potential business value. And as I said, I try to help with frameworks to give for those digital leaders out there. The very skeleton of the framework that I offer is I divide the potential value into three buckets. The first bucket is the one that most people start with and even stay with, is the potential productivity boosting, right? In our internal workflows, in the way that individuals, teams, and the entire operations of an organization's work, and where can we amplify and augment that with AI in a smart way. The second bucket is creating new value. So that's how can we put AI into our products, into our customers' journeys, into the services or new solutions that we can build based on AI, or even AI first products. So that's the second bucket that I encourage digital leaders to think about. And they shouldn't wait until the productivity bucket is filled. They should think about this portfolio in parallel. And the third one, which I see even less people think about, and I call upon all digital leaders to do so, is potential and driving disruption. And that goes to, the entire value chains are going to change, and networks. And can we rethink scale and quality, and uh, moving up and down and sideways in the value network with this intelligence on tap? And how do we do that in a smart way, and before somebody else does that for us and disrupts us?
I was going to say, like, I'm often thought of as like this big misanthrope, and I hate the technology. The exact opposite is true. I'm just like trying to like throw some balance on the oh my gosh, this is amazing, we have to adopt it. And I'm just like, I love the technology too. Just don't let the second law of thermodynamics kick you in the butt. You're not going to get something for nothing. Stop thinking that you will. And then I love the customer focus. What are we going to deliver? But let's recognize there's going to be a cost associated with it, and make that explicit rather than a surprise 6 months into the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amir, you alluded to this before. I saw a talk maybe a year and a half ago from a futurist who was well respected. I can't think of her name, but very, very well respected at a conference. And she got up there and said what I never heard anybody say, which is, if somebody tells you they're on top of all this stuff, they're lying, because I do this for a living all day, every day, and I can't stay on top of all this stuff. So, if you're a leader, and you're trying to, what do you see as some of the characteristics between leaders who are thriving around this kind of rapid change, and those who are not? Any particular common denominators?
Yeah, and as you kind of rightly noted, this is the fastest pace of change that we've seen, right? I mean, just this week we've had Claude 4.5, we've had Sora 2, we've had Google releasing stuff, we've had the other things that I can't keep up with. So the one thing I will say, don't try to grab it all and understand all of this. Pick those directions that are relevant to you. You do need to dive deeper there, so don't keep shallow and just try to get a taste of all the buffet. Pick a specific area, and it should be as closely connected to what you're doing, either in your specific role or function, and see how. The first step, I would say, start there and try to amplify what you're doing with this new technology. The other thing I will say is, don't let this kind of pace of change, and also, right, you mentioned regulation in the beginning, the fact that regulation hasn't settled that yet, and the dust is still out there, and there's a lot of open questions. Don't let that stop you. You need it, because even if, and you will change your direction and strategy and tools that you're using, and even the products that you're offering, and some things will fail. But if you don't start now, if you haven't already started, you'll know even less. You'll be even less prepared for the bigger changes that are coming. So on the one hand, don't try to grab it all, but on the other hand, don't just wait and for things to settle down. Try to find the middle ground, the focused direction through which you will learn, and sometimes fail. One of the other things that, again, coming back to Jeff Bezos's letters and principles, you should fail and learn from those failures. By the way, I try to avoid the word failure. I think it's misleading. I think it's experimentation. So an experimentation is meant to teach you things and sometimes not succeed the way that you thought. So build some experimentation, build the confidence, create some value through that experimentation, build the skill, build the understand the limitations. If you're a digital leader and you're not experimenting with AI and even not taking some big bets, I think you're in the wrong path. I even heard there's one, again, sorry, I forgot his name, researcher in the healthcare and medical field, and he's doing like cancer research and whatnot. I heard a very strong saying by him saying, if you're not using AI now for medical research and for medical services, you're irresponsible. Of course, you need to do it in a smart way, or it's unethical not to do it, because the things that it allows you to do, the scale, the speed, the discoveries that you can do with AI are amazing. And you should learn how to use them. Of course, it's health, so you can affect people's lives or deaths, God forbid. So do it in a smart way and with good guardrails. But if you're not doing it, you're irresponsible. So do it, definitely, if you're a digital leader.
Amir, before we go, you work with clients on a couple other technologies beyond just AI. I'm curious as to what you're most excited about. I know you've done some work in VR, AR, and digital twins as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I did VR and AR in one of the startups that I was director of products at. I still believe, unlike Meta, and maybe Mark Zuckerberg will overrule me here, but I don't think it's ready to be like a mass technology. I think it's more specific use case. It's great for several things, like training in extreme situations, maybe some entertainment and gaming, and the special experiences. I don't think it should replace face to face, physical or even video. I don't see that happening. I love, again, I love the technology. Augmented reality, maybe better use cases. Actually, we ended up pivoting the VR applications that we did at the startup to augmented reality that supports manufacturing and accurate placement of maintenance work and whatnot. So that is VR and AR. Cool technology. I don't think mass applications there. Digital twins, actually, I think have a lot of potential, and it also connects to data and real world. And now that we're going to see more robotics connecting with AI, and all the drones and physical things that are coming, and we are speaking about digital twins of humans and even human cells. I think that's very interesting technology. Long way to go there, but you can start to think about Star Trek things like holodeck uh, and even nanobodies, fixing your ailments and even chronic things, which are amazing. So definitely interesting. I think digital twins and the wider definition of that, that's an amazing area.
Fascinating. Well, Amir, thank you so much for joining us. Really interesting conversation, and some of your experiences have been great. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
So yeah, LinkedIn is I'm pretty active there. My website, my company's website is thinkbigleaders.com. Again, I borrowed one of Amazon's leadership principle, think big. So you're welcome to see some of the things that I write there. I just started a newsletter on Substack, so try to find that there. And yeah, and every now and again, if you follow me there on these networks, you'll see all kinds of applications that I'm experimenting with and failing, and and hope to get some feedback on. So I just launched last month vibe coded something that I call Glory Hack. So gloryhack.com, you can go out and try that as well. So if it's still there once this show is up, we'll see.
Sounds good. Amir, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Chris, what's any predictions for the next week? That's like even more impossible question than it was a couple of years ago.
More change, more craziness.
The only thing that's predictable is more
we ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, given my space stuff, I don't know if you caught this, but there were 2 supernovas in like a few hours of each other just a couple of days ago. The Earth is currently undergoing an enormous magnetic storm, and we're about to get hit with like more proton or ion flows from the sun because there's dark spots coming at us. And then this Atlas 3 whatever interplanetary rock is rocketing through the solar system and breaking apart. This is just like, it's unbelievable the amount of stuff going on. So, and that's all causing more earthquakes. It's just, it's amazing with endless entertainment to keep us from distracted from social media, I guess.
Yes, and as of this show being filmed here, the U.S. government is officially shut down. So we shall see. Unfortunately, I was told the IRS is not subject to those shutdowns, so you still have to pay your taxes.
Yeah, if we do more of a selective shutdown, we might get better results. I don't know.
Have a great week, everybody. If there's anything you're working on that you need help with, please reach out to us. We're here for you, IRPAAI.org. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, Chris. Take care. Bye.